Hey there, welcome to Real Talk Baseball. We have a special off-season series. We'll be talking all 30 MLB teams, breaking down their off-season rumors, trade predictions, free agent signings, and projected lineups for 2025. I'm your host, Ernie Orange, and I'm here with our baseball analyst from Real Talk Baseball, Will Power. How are you doing out there, Will?
I'm doing great, man. Love
Well,
talking baseball with you, bro.
exactly, man. We're excited to be back. We'll be breaking down the Seattle Mariners today, a team that finished second place in the AL West, and we're just a tad bit short of being first place and beating those Astros. What do you think about this Mariners team, man? How it all went through for them in 2024?
There's some guys on the Mariners team that you just look at them on paper and you're like, this guy's going to be a stud. Talking about like Julio Rodriguez, George Kirby on the pitching side. But last year it just didn't really pan out for them. Julio Rodriguez was very unproductive in the first half. He kind of started to come to life in the second half, but altogether, he just he wasn't the guy that everyone thought he was going to be, unfortunately. And one of the things that I said that the Mariners need that they haven't had in a while is like a good veteran in the clubhouse to kind of like guide these young guys. And with Julio Rodriguez, with his first language being Spanish, it'd be nice if they could get a Latino in there, a veteran Latino, and kind of like guide Julio Rodriguez, because they did have Justin Turner, in 2024, which was great for the team. He's a great teammate, great for the clubhouse. I think one day he's going to make a great baseball manager. But it's hard to relate sometimes when there's a language barrier, and with guys like that, with Julio Rodriguez, who's supposed to be like this phenom, speed, power, contact skills, good defender. It's a little rough when you don't really have anyone to look up to in the clubhouse.
Definitely, definitely. It's a Julio Rodriguez disappointing season. He was going into year three. We're expecting great things as MVP. It did not go his way. Cal Raleigh, back at the back of the home plate, struck out a lot, hit a lot of bombs, but struck out a lot. There was a lot of guys that just didn't pan out on the offensive side. They were leading the strikeouts, and their batting average was 224, ranked 29th in the MLB. So this is not good. You're talking about a team that has the best rotation in baseball, if you think about it, 1 through 5. And picture it's the best one in the MLB. But this offense was just a detriment of this Mariners team, and unfortunately, they cannot overcome the offensive struggles all year round. And it's a team that was 10 games above the Astros in first place, and they should have found any way to secure that first place, and they did not. And they fell three and a half games back, and now we're sitting here talking about how this Mariners team could get any better going into 2025.
It's going to be a struggle, man, because the Mariners aren't really the type of team that likes to pay. So free agency, there's one guy that really they could go after, that I'm thinking, and it's going to be a long shot, and that's Roki Sasaki. Looking at Roki Sasaki being the 22-year-old phenom from Japan, every team has a legit shot to sign this guy because he has a cap, a salary cap that basically every team can afford. Because he's so young, because he's going to be part of that international free agent pool. Every one of the 30 teams is probably going to offer this guy something, and if they don't, then their front office needs to get fired because, with the amount of money that they have to spend on this guy, there's no reason why you shouldn't be offering him something, because you never know what he's thinking. You never know what his agent and him have talked about, in the off season. And, he wants to be in Major League Baseball, and being one of the youngest Japanese players to come over at only 22 years old, he's going to be on that like rookie contract, the
Exactly.
international contract. And he's not going to be very expensive. There's a lot of incentives that teams can add, plate appearances, or I'm sorry, not plate appearances, innings pitched, or, number of strikeouts, or number of wins, bonuses and stuff like that. But when it comes to the actual contract, every single team has a legit chance to land this guy. There's a couple teams that are the favorites, like the Dodgers and the Padres, but they're not going to be able to spend any extra money on this guy, compared to other teams. So I think the Mariners have just as good of a chance as anyone else to land this guy. They just need to have that interview with him and wow him, and with the team that they have right now,
Man,
it,
that would
it,
be beautiful.
it's hard, to be able to sign a guy. Like, you have to be able to convince this guy, like, look, we're going to be in the World Series with you, building around you. And they got to have a plan. They got to have something going on, And
Yep.
other than Roki Sasaki, I've heard that Justin Turner, might return. Like I said, the veteran in the clubhouse, that's a great one to add again, and I don't think anyone is really like beating down Justin Turner's door to get him on their team. So he said he felt comfortable playing in Seattle. He had chemistry with the guys, and there's also kind of rumors about Yoan Moncada, that the Mariners are looking to sign someone to man third base, and Yoan Moncada, he was a top prospect in the White Sox organization years ago, and he just kind of didn't pan out, injuries and cold streaks. And I mean, he played for the White Sox. Like, you can't really expect much from a guy who played with the worst team in the league. So I don't know. What else have you heard in free agency talks?
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point about Roki Sasaki. I think that would be a great addition. Seattle has a huge Japanese community. You have Ichiro that once played there, and the fans came and supported the Japanese players, right? Jerry DePoto, their baseball ops guy, who was once with the Angels, he's the guy that got Shohei Ohtani to come to the Angels, right? A big shocker for a lot of us because Shohei Ohtani chose the Angels over the Dodgers. What?
I know that was
Exactly.
crazy, man. I remember I was at work that day when I heard that Shohei Ohtani had signed with the Angels, and everyone was just like, "What? He signed with
Exactly.
the Angels?" It's crazy, to think about that. But it just goes to show you that every team has a legit chance to sign any one of these guys that are in part of that international pool.
And this is a perfect example. Why? Because Jerry Laporte already has an experience bringing in Japanese players, and he could probably try to convince you that he'll be the next Shohei, right? So it's a great opportunity. Now, you're talking about what the Seattle really needs. They definitely need, like you said, an experienced type player. Like you said, bring a Latino player. I think a guy that you could bring for first base is like Carlos Santana. He would be a great addition for the Mariners. A guy that's, played a long time in this league, and he's proven time and time again that he still has a good bat and could play as a switch hitter, right? You need to bring some more bats to this Mariners team. They desperately need it. And like you said, Justin Turner, he's hitting into age 40, but he still showed that he still has some pop in his bat. And this guy could continue playing for as long as he wants because he brings that great veteran clubhouse environment with the guys. And I think he'll be great for Julio Rodriguez and Randy Arozarena in that clubhouse.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you said, man, this pitching rotation is already so deep, right? You just got to build on that and maybe have a better bullpen out there. Close out some games because Munoz had a great start to the season, but he kind of wore out towards the second half of the season, being overplayed a lot. And so, man, there's a lot of needs that the Mariners need, and they need to do something because they need to try to win this first World Series in history. So what are your thoughts on that, man? This is a team that needs to make some moves, right? Well, will you agree with me?
Yeah, and one of the moves I think they need to do is go after one of these like big managers, because like what was it? The Cincinnati Reds just hired Terry Francona, and dude, that is huge to me. Like, these teams that weren't really much to look at, like the Astros before Dusty Baker, and now with the Reds going after Terry Francona, they're look at the Tigers. Look how AJ Hinch ended up taking the Tigers to the postseason. And no one ever thought that was possible. So management has a lot to do with postseason possibilities. And I think if they were to go after someone like that has experience and knows how to get to the postseason and get the most out of their players, I think that's one of the biggest needs of the Mariners also.
You're totally right, man. Scott Service is definitely in the hot seat, and so is Jerry DePoto. I think the whole front office is in the hot seat. This year is the year they must make the playoffs, or there's going to be some big major changes in the front office. Now we're going to talk about trade predictions. Is there any trade that they should make? You think they should trade one of their top pitchers for potentially a great at bat in the middle of the lineup? You're talking about George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Brian Miller, Bryce Wool. Maybe I'm messing up those names, and then you got Luis Castillo. Are those guys that you should trade? Maybe one of those guys, and maybe get that huge at bat in the middle of the lineup.
I think if they're looking for the future and not looking at 2025, I think Luis Castillo would be like a huge name that they could move. That I think that's where they can get the most value, because Luis Castillo is a huge name. He's been on somewhat of a decline in the last couple seasons, but the strikeouts are there. His changeup is one of the greatest in the league. He has that like really hard sinker that he throws also, and I think that would be a great player to be able to trade, as long as they're not really trying to go for it in 2025, which I don't think they should. I think they should start not start, but I think they should continue building, on top of Julio Rodriguez and these younger pitchers like Bryce Miller, like you said, and Logan Gilbert and George Kirby, like that. Those three are pretty solid, man. I think that they could do it even without Luis Castillo, and kind of replicate what they did last season. And getting like a younger bat, and some or maybe not necessarily younger, but someone that could like stay with the organization for 3 or 4 years. I think that would be a great trade to be had. I can't really think of any teams off the top of my head that you could really like trade to, because it's probably going to be closer to the trade deadline, and it's going to be teams that are missing that one pitcher that could really use like a solid like number two. Like the Phillies could. I think Luis Castillo would fit great with the Phillies, man. He could be a solid number two, in that rotation. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see, what teams are really in the hunt for the playoffs next season, come around, June, July, but right before the trade deadline, just kind of see what happens. But they do need a third baseman. Josh Rojas is gone. He elected free agency. So
either they bring him back or they bring an experienced batter, right?
Yeah, I think that third base would be like a huge one that they could definitely trade for. But, I don't think they would sign Bregman. I don't think they want to like spend money like that. It would probably have to be a trade. And what third basemans are out there that teams are actually willing to give up?
That's
I
a tough.
I don't think anyone really wants to give up their third baseman right now.
You're totally right, man. The Mariners have a lot of thinking to do. Jerry DePoto's definitely on the hot seat. He has to make some big push, and I know the Mariners are not known for spending a lot of money, but if they want to make some playoff appearances for the next decade, they need to spend the money. And I think we could all agree that they're heading to the right direction, but they just need a little bit more offensively. Now let's talk about some prospects that the Mariners should be thinking about calling up soon. Do you have any prospects out there that these Mariners team could look into the future?
So there's only a couple that I saw on the top 100 MLB prospects. The first one is Colt Emerson. He is the number one prospect for the Mariners, but he's only 19 years old. I don't think he's ready yet to make it to the big club. He's a shortstop, good glove, decent pop, good contact, but I think he still needs a couple more seasons to develop, and be ready for major leagues. But the next guy, Cole Young, another middle infielder, plays shortstop and second base. I think that could be a decent addition to the Mariners lineup. And I don't think he'll be ready like opening day. He'll probably get an invite to spring training, but I doubt that we'll see him before September. I don't think that the Mariners really have like incentive to bring them up so early. There's no point yet, because they still have basically their whole lineup still intact from last season. And they have JP Crawford at shortstop and Dylan Moore at second base. And neither one of these prospects that are coming up within the next couple of years play third base, unless they start getting reps in the minor leagues, which you might be able to see this coming season, but that would also be kind of like more towards like a September call up, nothing soon. So I don't really see the Mariners calling up anyone anytime soon. barring any like injuries or anything like that. So I think it's going to be a little while before we actually see some movement from the minor leagues.
Yeah, definitely, man. These prospects is very thin in this Mariners organization. This is what Jerry DiPoto does, man. He broke apart the Angels, prospects out there. We don't have anybody out there, and it's looking the same thing with the Mariner team. So this is where I'm kind of confused why Jerry DiPoto's still here, running the front office for this Mariners team. He's shown time and time again that he chokes and doesn't do the right moves and doesn't draft very well. So
See, and this
uh,
is what we were talking about last week also, that maybe a lot of these teams that are like in this rebuilding phase, like the Angels right now, signing Yusei Kikuchi to the 3-year deal for $63 million. That's $21 million a year for a decent pitcher, which is fine, but that's if you're in a playoff hunt. He's not the type of guy that should be like a top priority for any team. And now they're spending money that they could be using towards front office staff and trying to like rebuild. Like I talked about Farhan Zaidi, that was a
GM.
former GM for the Dodgers, and he was the president of baseball operations for the Giants last season. And he ended up getting fired, because things didn't really go that way. But I think any kind of experience is experience itself, and I think if he were to get hired by a team, like a struggling team like the Angels or the Mariners, I think that he would do very well, and these teams really need to learn how to draft and develop these prospects to be able to come up. And when was the last time that we actually saw a Mariners prospect come up and just be the guy? Julio Rodriguez was supposed to be the guy, and first year, the rookie of the year was great, but we haven't seen that type of season from Julio Rodriguez since then. It's already been a few years now. So
Question for you: you think Julio comes back to his norm in year 4?
I hope so, but like I was saying before, man, I think he needs some veteran guidance, and it could also be just because Scott Servais is the manager, and maybe he needs someone that kind of is more relatable. The managing in today's game is huge, especially in baseball, man, because
Right.
if your player doesn't have the confidence to go out there and play 162 games, you're doing something wrong. And I feel like the manager should be the one to go out there and give these guys some confidence, and I don't really see this from this Mariners team.
I do see them bouncing back just a bit more this year. Just the simple fact that Julio Rodriguez will finally have some protection in the lineup. You brought in Randy Arozarena, who had a off year last year, but also was dealing with an injury. So now with both being them healthy in the middle of the lineup, I see them making a difference. I do see them competing with the Astros this year going forward because the pitching. When you have pitching starting rotation from 1 to 5 that could win easily 10 games, this is a rate for success, right, in the MLB. So all power to the Mariners. They have a lot of work to do still this offseason. They've been kind of quiet in this offseason right now, but we're heading into December with this winter meetings, and hopefully they can sign some great players to add some support for Julio Rodriguez. Now, let's talk about projected lineups. What are your projected lineups going forward for 2025?
So from what I see, it looks like Victor Robles is going to be the leadoff hitter for the Mariners, followed by Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh. You mentioned Cal Raleigh earlier with the strikeouts, but he has big power. So I like Victor Robles and Julio Rodriguez, going number 1 and number 2, and Cal Raleigh getting some RBIs hitting behind them. Randy Arozarena batting leadoff, and then you have Luke Raley batting number 5. Mitch Haniger, I feel like is going to be the dark horse, man, because a few seasons ago, Mitch Haniger was really good. He was hitting home runs. He was hitting for average, not like a batting average standout by any means, but he was good enough to be in the lineup every day and hitting like 3 or 4 in the order. But he's a little bit older. He had that injury. Do you remember what his injury was? It was a little gross, man. So he fouled a ball off of his balls, and one of his testicles ruptured. Do you remember that?
No, man, but that just sounds
Yeah.
painful, and I can see why you can't swing the same.
Yeah, definitely. When he came back, he just hasn't been the same, man. But you know, it's been a little bit of time now, so maybe he can kind of like get back into order. Then you have J.P. Crawford at shortstop, Dylan Moore at second base, and you have that hole at third base. So that's where I'm saying like they need to go after a third baseman. Depending on who they do have play third base would definitely change the lineup. But I think that they should probably sign Justin Turner for another 1-year deal. He's probably going to be
Sure.
$7-8 million, which is not very expensive in baseball terms. Or they take the chance on Yohan Moncada, who's probably going to be even cheaper than that. Maybe $4 million, $5 million for a 1-year deal. It's going to be like a prove it year because he's still relatively young. I think he's only like 28 years old, maybe 29. So he still has if he can finally hit his prime, he still has, 2 or 3 solid years before he starts slowing down into his 30s. So,
You're definitely right, man. Adding a first baseman and third baseman are much needed for this Mariners offense, and I think they're almost there. So this is going to be an interesting offseason for the Mariners, and I hope they make a difference because this Mariner fan base deserves it. They've been waiting for success, and it hasn't really came in a long time. So all
and
power
right
to
now is the time to do it because the AL West is kind of like it's
Astros
not
are
the
in the
same as it
decline.
was like it's not the same it was 2-3 years ago, and I think now is the time to really like jump on it and take home the AL West.
Definitely, definitely. Well, this was a great show, Will. We appreciate it. You guys joining us. If you guys really like our content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this off season, so we will really appreciate if you guys could hit that like and subscribe. Make sure to hit that QR code to keep following us on all social media platforms. This is Ernie Orange, your host, and Will Power signing out.
See you guys.